Mexico, a lively country in Latin America, is currently facing one of the most violent election periods in its history. What started as a hopeful democratic exercise has turned into a dark chapter, with 30 political candidates losing their lives following the June 2024 elections. The violence didn't stop there. 77 other politicians are under constant threat, living precariously between life and death. Additionally, 11 individuals were kidnapped, taken from their families and supporters, with their whereabouts still unknown. This nation, known for its rich culture and infamous ties to drug cartels, now faces an uncertain future. Elections, rather than a celebration of democracy, have become a grim tale of bloodshed and fear. On a tragic Friday in April, violence erupted during a political campaign. A hopeful rally turned into a scene of horror, leaving an unforgettable scar on those present. Supporters, initially filled with enthusiasm, were left frozen by the brutality. News of the attack spread rapidly, accompanied by disturbing images and leaflets that stood as silent witnesses to the event. Amid this turmoil, the main suspect escaped without a trace. Authorities pledged swift action, promising an arrest within days. However, before this could happen, Mexico was hit by yet another tragedy. Alberto Antonio Garcia, a mayoral candidate who aimed to bring positive change through the Morena party, was found dead in the small town of San Jose, Independencia in Oaxaca. This town, which symbolized his promises, became the site of his death. To add to the sorrow, his wife, a councilwoman in a community of under 5,000 residents, was kidnapped and held for 2 days before being released. The deaths of No Ramos and Alberto Antonio Garcia added to the grim list of political violence plaguing Mexico. These incidents are not isolated. Over recent election cycles, violence has become a persistent issue. Data from electoral monitors indicate that 30 candidates have been killed this year alone. Additionally, 27 elected officials and community leaders have faced similar fates. The violence goes beyond assassinations, encompassing kidnappings, assaults, and death threats. So far, over 170 violent acts have been recorded, including 29 direct attacks, 11 abductions, and 77 death threats. On a terrifying Tuesday in late April, armed individuals attempted to assassinate Arturo Lara, a mayoral candidate in Amanalco, a town in central Mexico. Despite its proximity to the capital's security resources, the town became the site of this alarming assassination attempt. In another tense situation, Lorenzo Martinez, a mayoral candidate in Zacapu, withdrew his candidacy due to increasing threats. These are not just news stories. They reflect a grim reality where safety is rare, and politicians live under the constant threat of violence. Elections in Mexico, which should be a democratic celebration, have been overshadowed by heartbreaking violence. Unfortunately, this is not a new issue. The 2024 elections are just the latest in a series of bloody political contests. In 2021, 30 political candidates were killed, and in 2018, 24 more met similar fates. Political violence is deeply rooted in Mexico's history, stretching back to the assassination of presidential candidate Luis Donaldo Colosio in 1994, and even further to the murder of President Álvaro Obregón in 1928. These events highlight a long history of instability and political conflict. The dynamics of violence have changed. What used to be a power struggle between political factions has transformed into something much darker. Drug cartels and organized crime now play a central role. These groups have increasingly infiltrated politics, using intimidation, corruption, and terror to expand their influence. Elections are no longer contests of ideas, but battlegrounds where cartels aim to install candidates who will serve their interests. Cartels' strategies are highly coordinated. They rely on fear and violence to dominate local politics, ensuring that elected officials protect their operations instead of opposing them. Consequently, elections are dangerous for both politicians and voters. Politicians face constant threats, while citizens are pressured to vote for cartel-backed candidates, undermining democracy. This worsening situation has caused public doubt. People question whether their government can protect them. Unfortunately, underfunded and outgunned local authorities seem powerless. Worse, the line between government institutions and organized crime has become so blurred that they are often indistinguishable. This overlap has led to widespread corruption, with law enforcement and state security forces sometimes serving criminal interests. Security experts and analysts have been raising alarms for years. In 2018, nearly half of all political violence in Mexico was tied to organized crime. Politicians were being killed at an alarming rate, about one per week. Criminal groups used state security forces to eliminate enemies and safeguard their illegal activities, from smuggling drugs to controlling local economies. The rise of fentanyl and the legalization of marijuana in parts of the United States have further reshaped cartel operations. With these market changes, cartels have shifted to other illicit activities like oil theft, extortion, and kidnappings. These crimes tied to local control make political dominance even more important to their operations. This toxic mix of economic motives, political ambitions, and personal vendettas continues to fuel the cycle of violence in Mexico.